This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined the Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. Since 2018, the Browns have been at a place where they've had to see what they had in quarterback, right? From 2018 to 2021, that guy was Baker Mayfield. From 2022 to 2024, that guy was Deshaun Watson, right? We've been trying to figure it out with those two guys, which has meant that the emphasis on running the football may not have been where a lot of people have wanted it, because, again, the Browns were in a situation where they had to figure out if this guy that they have is a franchise quarterback, which means you got to lean on him to do some franchise stuff, which means sometimes you lean away from running the ball. But for better or worse, in 2025, the Browns will likely be shackled of that, right? They're not going to draft somebody number 1 overall to play quarterback for them like Baker Mayfield was. They're not going to trade 3 first-round picks for a quarterback this offseason like Deshaun Watson, right? Even if they draft somebody in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th round, or whenever they draft a quarterback this year, that commitment to that quarterback isn't going to be so steep that it requires you to see it all the way if each one of those picks could be a franchise quarterback. Basically, what I am saying is that while the Browns have more questions than ever at quarterback this offseason than they've had in almost over half a decade, the one thing that does open up as an opportunity for the Cleveland Browns is that they get to run the ball next year. Now, right now, running the ball is not that attractive of an option for the Cleveland Browns. They're not very good at it. They don't have the best personnel for it. Their best player in the run game is coming off of a debilitating knee injury that it looks like it's going to take him just another offseason to fully be able to get over. And even if he does get to full strength, you still need this offensive line to be considerably better than they've been in years past. So the Browns aren't equipped to run the ball right now 40, 50 times. They're just not that kind of an offense. But if you are looking for an offseason where running the ball and building an offense to run the ball will be very, very possible, this offseason is your offseason. Like, if you are run the damn ball guy, if you're run the ball Kevin shirt guy, right? You bought that shirt. This is your offseason, because the options that the Browns have to rebuild this run game in a way that will be effective next year are plentiful. There are tons of players here that I think could immediately help your run game, both in the free agent market and in the draft, both at offensive line and at running back. And when it comes to running back, there are almost too many options for me to name. I'm not going to name every good running back in this class in this video. It's just impossible. There's going to be more guys who pop up. There's so many good running backs in this draft class. So I don't want to get caught up on a specific name or two, right? Yeah, Ashton Jeanty is really, really good. He's going to be a really, really good running back in the NFL. But if you don't get Jeanty, that's not like that's the only running back in this class. This is the most stacked running back class in recent memory. There are prospects on top of prospects on top of prospects on top of prospects this year. Now, why would the Browns want to run the ball a ton, right? Why would they want to do it now? I kind of described it earlier on why they would do it now more than ever. But one, running the ball has been an increasingly more successful strategy as teams have kind of retreated to the cover 2s and the cover 4s and the too high safety looks. Running the ball has been more and more successful, if not just in the NFL, right? If you're looking at a lot of teams having success running the ball, Philadelphia Eagles, the Pittsburgh Steelers, all of these the Chargers, all these run the ball based teams that are excelling now in running the football. But also, if you look at college football, it's a lot of teams in the playoff right now that their specialty, their strength is being able to run the ball. And I would argue the best bridge quarterback for a football team is a really, really strong run game, right? It's easy to find a bridge quarterback when you have a strong run game, which is to say you can get away with a lot at quarterback if you got a really, really strong run game. You want to run Jameis Winston out there, try to limit the interceptions, you got to have a strong run game. You want to run Sam Darnold out there, you got to have a strong run game. You want to draft a Carson Beck or a Dylan Gabriel or Jalen Milroe or any of these guys who are going to probably drop to the 3rd round, you got to have a strong run game. That is going to be paramount to the Browns' success on offense and at quarterback going forward, right? If they want to be able to find success and also find winning success with whatever quarterback they go with next year. So what does a run the damn ball offseason look like? What does that look like to me? This is what it looks like. First, this is how you operate with the roster. On the Browns, you bring back Nick Chubb on a 1+1 kind of the deal, right? A $4.2 million deal, like under $5 million for APY. I think you could do it. You could get Mekhi Becton on like a 3-year deal, spread that money out. I would go after like a reclamation project, like an Evan Neal, and then bring back James Hudson. Maybe you move on from Wyatt Teller. Maybe you don't. I can see a world where they say, hey, Wyatt's still 31. He still has the opportunity to play better. So let's just restructure him to free up some cap space. And then you free up cap space. So just realizing while I was editing this video, I didn't do a good job of explaining what this graphic is that's scrolling up and down on your screen. That is what I project in this specific scenario for the Browns to do to be able to free up the cap space to get some of the guys that I mentioned in this video, or have the option to get some of the guys that I mentioned in this video. So if you see someone, their name's highlighted in that light red pinkish color, that means they're cut. If you see somebody in that greenish, like kind of light green color, that means their contract got restructured. And then a yellow orangish kind of highlight over their name means that they got traded. So that is how I managed to get the cap space, hypothetically, for the Browns to be able to operate and do this. And the reason I brought that in is because I know people are going to have the question when they watch the video, well, this is nice, but how are you going to do it with the Deshaun Watson contract? Well, this is how you can do it with the Deshaun Watson contract and still, not mess up your cap space in the future. You can be more aggressive. You can be less aggressive. What the scenario I have laid out here opens up about $60 million in cap space for the Cleveland Browns. You wouldn't use all 100% of it, but this is one way they could get to it. They're ultimately probably going to get to that number a different way than how I showed. But this is just a proof of concept that, yes, it is very possible. Just doing some basic manipulations of the cap, you can open up a lot of cap space this year. So that's what that graphic is. I realized I didn't explain it well. Now we can get back to why I think that this is the offseason to get the run the ball offense a good shot. By restructuring Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Deshaun Watson, and Dalvin Tomlinson. The next thing you know, you're sitting in a pretty good sum of cap space there. You could also make some moves kind of at the bottom of the roster that will free up some money there, and then trade Greg Newsome, which would be about $13.3 million you would free up. Basically, it opens up a ton of cap space so you can have some flexibility, not just for this year, but for next year when you think about rollover cap. And also, it allows you to get much stronger, much larger in the interior of your offensive line, right? Mekhi Becton could take over one of those guard spots. Maybe he just does it for a couple of years while you get Zach Zinter, his NFL sea legs. Or maybe Zach Zinter's ready this offseason, and that makes Wyatt Teller movable during the season, which is a good option to have. So it just frees up more space when you get younger. At center, you might want to bring in somebody from free agency. I haven't landed on that person yet, but there's some names out there that you can go ahead and look into. The draft is also going to be an option for center, but if you're looking at free agency, you're looking at the first steps of this. How do they free up money? And who do they sign with that money? This is just some preliminary stuff, right? Go out, take a flyer, trade for Evan Neal, see what he has. It's going to be like a low-end flyer, like a 6th, 7th round pick for him, for somebody who was a former 7th overall pick. Mekhi Becton, You go out and you get a big guard who can move people on the line of scrimmage. I like the prospect of having him and DeJuan Jones next to each other so you can win more short yardage situation just by leveraging the amount of weight that you have on the offensive line. Maybe you want to bring back somebody like James Hudson just to be a just-in-case tackle for you, or to be an eligible blocker for you on certain sets. But, I think but you could switch out James Hudson with any other tackle, Chooks Okorafor, right? You have the space in this scenario if you want to go out and get a Dan Moore at tackle, to go out and get a Dan Moore at tackle. Also, this scenario doesn't require that you cut Jack Conklin, who might be one of your only reliable tackles on the roster right now, given that DeJuan Jones has dealt with a lot of injuries, and he's had issues showing up in shape at times. So that's the cap space situation. Let's look at the draft stuff. Now, if we're looking at round one and we're just focusing on run the ball options, right? Guys who can help your run game get better. There's two guys that I land on that will be available at the top end of this draft that I think will really help this team run the ball. One, Ashton Jeanty. If you've not watched him play, go watch him play. The comp to him that I've heard a lot is LaDainian Tomlinson. He's not the biggest running back in the world, but he has excellent vision. He has excellent contact balance. He is quick, explosive, has the long speed to break off big runs. And look, you can say level of competition because he played in the Mountain West, but they almost beat Oregon, who looks like the undeniable number one team in the country right now and has been the number one team in the country for a while. And he had 200 against Oregon. So, he's done it against the big boys. We'll see what he does in the college football playoff. But even if he doesn't have the greatest showing in the college football playoff, I'm not about to discount what we've seen from Jeanty all year. That guy is going to be a game changer at running back. And if there's one prospect in this draft class that can dramatically change the win-loss record of the team that he gets drafted to, it's Jeanty. That's the one guy with that potential in this draft class. Everybody else will help you be a better team and be solid players that you can get in this top 10. But Jeanty, that's the guy who can change your fortunes on a win-loss record standpoint, because he's that good at running back. And if he translates to being that good at running back in the NFL, he's going to make your offense much better. You're going to score more touchdowns. You're going to be a better football team. The other guy, Will Campbell, he's really a guard. This is first round, but not the same area of the first round as Jeanty, right? Jeanty's a top 10 pick. Will Campbell is a top 20 pick, right? If you trade back, you want to upgrade the run game, go ahead, get Will Campbell. Day two, a lot of options, right? These are late first round guys, the early second. That's Irante Essery, Josh Simmons, Cam Williams, Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia, Donovan Jackson. I think Nick Singleton might be second, third, depending on what he does. Nick Singleton and Caleb Johnson, I think, are two guys who would be excellent fits in what the Browns want to do. Caleb Johnson is a one-cut downhill type runner, and with the Browns changing the run scheme up, want to run more out of shotgun, somebody like Caleb Johnson is going to be really effective in that. And then Nick Singleton already runs a ton out the gun. I think he'll be really successful in that too. Obviously, you want to draft Jeanty and then draft Nick Singleton, or draft Jeanty and then draft Caleb Johnson. But if you go out and you trade back and you get a Will Campbell and then you get one of these backs, they're going to be really good too. And you're going to have a really strong run game with them. Now, if you want to draft Jeanty and then pair him with a day 3 running back or some other options, I think there's a ton there too, right? You can get Cam Scatterboo, RJ Harvey. If you're looking for a starter at running back this year, you're going to be able to find it in all 3 days of the draft. It's just different levels and different amounts of risk that you might take, right? It might be a boom or bust running back prospect, but there's going to be good, solid, draftable running back prospects throughout all 3 days of this draft. It's just there's running back prospects that are probably going to pop onto the radar once the draft scout season starts that we aren't even thinking about right now. And we're already 3 days deep into running back prospects. So expect to see a ton of that during my draft coverage. Look, I'm going to try to get in depth with a lot of different prospects this year and really break them down, because it's the first year the Browns have had a first round pick in a long time. But also I think that the Browns are going to be having a little bit of a different strategy in this draft. and in free agency this year than they have in a long time, right? Like all of these other drafts have had the assumption of knowing you have a starting quarterback. Now that's not the case with this team. A lot's changed in just the few months that this season has occupied and how the Browns are going to have to operate in the offseason. And I'm fascinated to see how that goes down. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.